Welcome to the Buy Box Bandits podcast.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Buy Box Bandits podcast, episode 177, brought to you by Flips for Miles and All Out Amazon, soon to be newlywed All Out Amazon, but that's a story for another episode. Today, we are joined by the man FBA Elijah, who started selling on Amazon, you said end of July, right?
Yep, end of July, early August. Yep.
End of July, early August, did 230K, something like that, in his first December, quit the job, got the warehouse, somehow managed to figure this stuff out really quick and make it to the live streams every day. So we're excited to have you here, man. You're a great, success story. You are from Minnesota, right? So you have excellent pedigree. For anyone who's not familiar, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, South Florida, Oregon, Utah, Indiana, as of late, are some of the highest per capita successful Amazon seller states, according to Flips for Miles census data, in case you were wondering and such. But so tell us, Elijah, who are you? Your background story? How'd you get into selling on Amazon?
Hey, first, thanks for having me on. I've been an avid listener of the pod for quite some time since I started Amazon. So super happy to finally be in the seat. So I started on Amazon back in the end of July, early August. This all started as a very small pipe dream, and it was supposed to be just a side gig to begin with. So I found myself in the Amazon space through the packing and prepping, which is super weird. It's an unconventional way. Yeah. So about a year and a half before I started Amazon, my wife was scrolling on Facebook, and one of her friends posted out, "Hey, my husband has a warehouse and is looking for some part-time helpers in the evenings, just packing groceries." I'm like, "Hey, that sounds like a pretty good gig." I was in real estate beforehand. So I come from a pretty different background. I used to sit at a desk, 8, sometimes 15 hours a day. And I wouldn't get out of my house. I worked from home for 5 years leading up to COVID. And it was nice to get out and pack things in the evening. So I went to this warehouse, packed some groceries on the side. Come to find out, this warehouse I was packing at they do 8 figures a year, primarily in the grocery space. And they do a lot of branded stuff too. So I was helping them, and by asking some questions and being intuitive, come to find out they were selling on Amazon, and I kept asking more questions. And by the end of it, I didn't even want to get into Amazon. They actually said, "Hey, Elijah, we're switching our entire business model. We don't need evening help anymore, and we're not even going to be working evenings." So I'm like, "Sweet, no worries. I'll go back to just doing my own thing." And very quickly, a few weeks after that, I'm sitting there in the evening twiddling my thumbs. I think I was playing video games or something. And in the back of my head, I'm like, "Shoot, I wish I could be packing, kind of moving around, doing the damn thing like I was." And so I went off on a whim, searched up on YouTube, beginner guide to selling on Amazon, found you Miles, you Garrett, a couple other guys. Reezy Resells has some awesome beginner videos out there. Watched some beginner videos, and I remember I made one sheet, a 1-page, maybe 2-page Google Doc about like everything I would need to start my own Amazon business. And at the end of all of it, packing material, LLC expense, all of it, it was like under $1,000 to get started. And I'm like, man, you can't get into many other business models with just $1,000 or less. I mean, then you have to buy inventory, obviously, but to get your foot in the door, you could spend $1,000 including inventory and start selling, in a week or two. So yeah, that was when I started my Amazon journey. It's been a busy one since. I worked a full-time job all the way through December. So December was, man, it was brutal. I did probably 99% of all my orders were FBM.
Oh, it warms the heart. Just hearing about it, it warms the heart. Young man's journey to freedom, man. It's beautiful right there.
It's definitely, I'm glad I did it, but looking back, I'm like, man, I don't know how I did do it. I think there were 3 or 4 days where I couldn't even sleep because I had so many FBM orders to
But now
catch
you're
up
going to gain
on.
the leverage to not have to do it next
You
year.
bought
Yeah.
yourself decades of freedom as a result of that. You know what I mean? Like that
Yep.
shit is so worth it. I think about stuff like that all the time, man. Too. And then
100%.
how old are you and are you from like so you were doing real estate? Is that like corporate, like college degree required type stuff?
Yeah, so it was semi-corporate. I didn't need a degree. So I got licensed as a real estate agent at 18 years old. I'm 28 now, so I'm 10 years later.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in this chair. But I had a lot of things go on in real estate. I was an agent for a year or two. I did some transaction coordination management for one specific broker for a couple of years. And then I actually bound together with my old business partner, and we started a company that provided transactional services to a couple hundred agents here in Minnesota, Wisconsin, a couple other states around us too. So we were very busy. We had a successful business. I really liked what I did. I actually loved what I did, but not as much as I love Amazon, you know.
Freedom
So
and
it
flexibility.
Yeah.
exactly. And I had that before. I had some freedom, I had some flexibility, but I did have to kind of like not clock in, clock out. I did have like a set schedule Monday through Friday, which was a little bit less freeing than Amazon is. But you know, I got to a point in my real estate business and in Amazon where, you know, I ended December and I had made over my full-time salary in just November and December, you know, in my Amazon business, which was insane. And I'm looking at that data and I'm like, man, if I could do that part-time in 2 months of the year, imagine what I could do if I put all my time into this, added some, you know, helping hands, and then really like, you know, amp things up behind the scenes, buying more product, getting a warehouse with more space. Because up through December, I was doing all my FBM out of a 1 bedroom apartment. I mean, I had this thing like packed out to the nines. So
I
it was an interesting time, that's for sure. But like you guys said, if I wouldn't have kind of bared through that, I wouldn't be where I am today. So getting that head start, getting all that capital in November into December kind of launched me to where I am now. And I wouldn't have been as comfortable going full time if it weren't for those months.
Did you use
So
like lending, a loan, just all credit cards? How did you come up with the capital to spend 100, 120, $140,000 to make those sales?
yeah, that's a good question. So initially, I used my own capital. I wanted proof of concept before I went out and leveraged money. I don't like risk. I don't like gambling. So I wanted to make sure the odds were very, very heavily in my favor. So about November 1st, November 2nd, I got the Plum card, which was a huge, huge help to my business. I mean, I had capital before, but it's very hard to like cash flow capital on, you know, because my wife loves like the travel points and stuff like that. So I'm spending on these super low limit cards, you know, and some orders I'd want to order 10 grand, 15 grand of product, and I wouldn't even be able to put that through
As
on
that
all
one.
these cards,
I've been
right?
there,
So
man. Oh my God, I've been there, man. Yeah.
yeah, so now I got the Plum. I'm actually working on getting my hands on some other cards as well, just because even now with just the Plum, it seems like I'm like cash flow spent a lot of times, even though I have money in the bank, and you know, then I'm constantly like paying off cards and cycling through them way quicker than I should. So I'm about to open myself up to more capital, but to basically answer the question, the Plum has been my primary vehicle thus far, and I'd highly recommend it to individuals who have the proof of concept, who are very confident in their ability to, you know, buy successful products and sell them for a profit. You know, if you're in that position, you're, you know, having limited, you know, capital at your disposal, I would recommend getting the Plum. But start small. Don't, you know, I went balls to the wall and like basically November 2nd, I got the card. By November 5th, I think I had it capped out, which was awesome. That was part of why I did so well at the end of November. If I wouldn't have spent all that capital, I wouldn't have had you know, Cyber Monday was my best day by far. I did like 22K in a day on
Like
site
that
when I
is
Beautiful
was
just
thing.
so
disgusting.
nuts.
Like
Yeah.
I'm telling you,
And that's
this
probably
new
pretty high
age.
profit too.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course, right? The new age of seller just breaks all the rules. FBM immediately, bang. Like
Yeah, bang.
getting on socials with the boys immediately, bang.
Bang.
Yep.
Sharing everything from day one, bang. Like break all the fucking
100%.
rules. And everyone wants to sit here, everyone wants to delegate, everyone wants to prep center, everyone wants to talk about freeing their time. Dudes who haven't even quit their job yet. Makes no sense. Get
Yep.
your ass in the trenches in FBM. Get your ass in the
100%.
trenches in FBM.
100%. That the one thing I've gotten a lot of people, new sellers will ask me like, what's the one thing that could make me into, a beast of a seller? And my number one answer is just be consistent and do not stop. Like if you're already spent all your money, then you should be packing the product, getting it out. If you've already packed it and gotten it out, you should be sourcing new product. If you already source new product, well, there's always product to be sourced.
Yeah, fact.
But
Right.
then you should be networking with the guys on Discord, putting together game plans for future sales. I mean, there is always something to be done in your Amazon business. So you should almost never be sitting back, kicking the legs up like, oh, I'm caught up, because you really should never be caught up.
So having you on the pod is I think the perfect testimonial, the perfect example of what is potentially available for a lot of these people. Right? There's going to be so
100%.
many people driving to their 9 to 5s listening to us.
Yep.
And you are kind of in an attainable situation where you were in a job 6 months ago, not even, right?
Yep.
And so speaking to that person that's maybe looking to exit the 9 to 5, looking for something bigger, better, more attainable, more valuable for themselves, what's that playbook look like to maybe get them out of their 9 to 5 in 6 months? Again, you're very low risk, very calculated. You didn't start with hundreds of $1,000s in this business, right?
Right.
You earned and you have achieved everything you have, which I think for most people resonates heavily. And so kind of walk us through that playbook of working towards where you're at.
Yeah. So honestly, getting to where I'm at, it maybe looks like it was easy or sounds like it was easy, but the truth is, behind the scenes, like pulling down the curtain, the the basis of everything I've done is basically hard work. It's
Of
like
course.
when I was in real estate, I was working about 10-hour days Monday through Friday. And when I got done at 4 or 5 p.m., I was staying up all night prepping. I mean, there were literal 3-4 day stints where I didn't sleep. And, part of that was to my choice. Part of it was not. There was one day where I probably could have slept a few hours, but I'm like, nah, I'll just power through it and sleep tomorrow. But honestly, the hard work piece to me is the biggest factor in getting someone to where they want to be in any business. In Amazon specifically, like if I were to give someone a perfect roadmap from being in like a 9 to 5 to not, you basically have to be ready to work extremely hard, like harder than you've ever worked, because you're working a full-time job and then you're working a fuller time job. And so you basically have to cut out a lot of things in your life. There were multiple conversations with my wife where I had to basically just be like, hey, babe, I'm not going to be able to do anything for the next 4 days. And it just is what it is, because I bought so much product. I'd have to pack it and want to get it off, whether it be FBA or FBM. And I'd kind of set myself up for stints of hard work. And then I'd have like 2-3 days where it wouldn't be as hard of work. I'd still be staying up till midnight, 2 a.m., but I'd get some sleep. So honestly, if you are one of those people, looking to get out of your 9 to 5, be prepared to work really hard. That's the number one thing. Number two, make sure you have systems in place. Know your numbers. If you don't know you're making money, you could be losing money for all you know. I remember my first month in the business, I didn't have seller board. I didn't have seller amp. I didn't have I think I had Keepa, and that's it. And I thought I was profiting if I would have guessed 25% return on my investment or so, which was semi decent. But after getting seller board, putting my cost of goods in, putting my expenses in, come to find out, I was only making like 15% ROI because of returns, expenses, a lot of things that I couldn't calculate myself, but the system could. So that's another thing, is just know your numbers. You're not going to get to where you want to go unless you have a clear picture of where you're at now and where you want to be. And it's hard to know where you're at now without the proper systems. But yeah, I mean, I wish I could give the people a perfect answer. Honestly, hard work, systems, pull triggers, but pull them very lightly. Don't purchase product off on a whim. If you see a good deal, make sure you do the research. I've made bad buys in my Amazon business, and that's one thing that,
Everyone
if I were to, right, yeah, and if I were to rewind the clock, I wish someone would have told me, like, hey, every time you're about to place an order or purchase something, just reassess it, hold your breath, take your time with it, and then pull that trigger. Because just like pulling the trigger, if you do it without taking your time, holding your breath, the shot's going to be off. So that was a big thing for me. After I knew my numbers, after I knew I made some bad buys, then I kind of reassessed how I pulled the trigger on things. And since then, my business has looked a lot different. So taking time through every step is going to be key for these sellers to get where they want to go, as far as making Amazon their full-time gig.
Yes, and you made a very important point there. Basically, that there's going to be lots of long hours required if you want to quit your job, right? It's different if you want to make $1,000 a month. But our main
100%.
demographics of people listening to this are 99.2% male, the vast majority of those being 25 to 34. So you just break that down, it's probably people who don't like their 9 to 5. So that is going to be what's required. You're going to
Yep.
need to FBM. You're going to need to talk with people online. It's going to be fun. It's going to be hard. Right. And I think you started right when we really, really kicked up the volume of the streams. Right.
Yeah.
So, you obviously seemed like you really enjoyed that. I know we really enjoyed, we always see you in there. Now you're too rich. Armand pops in sometimes too and such. But how did that play into it? More so on the side of just like, I feel like you were introduced to the community really, really quick. Like I remember, I think following you in like August or September. Like, how did that play into everything?
Yeah, so honestly, and thank you, Miles, for pushing. I remember I was in a live and you said, I think out of the blue, you're like, Elijah, I don't think you have a Twitter. You need to get on Twitter. You need to start something and network. And basically the next day, I could probably go back and find the stream. It was sometime in August. You had mentioned that on the live. I made a Twitter and went off on a whim. Social media and networking has been probably one of the top 2 or 3 proponents to my success for sure. That I definitely should have included that in my last answer 100%, because if it weren't for a lot of the guys I've networked with, if it weren't for you telling me to get on Twitter, I wouldn't have met most of those people. And networking, getting a Discord together with close-knit individuals that I can relate with, and likewise, that's been a huge, huge principle to being successful on Amazon. And there's a few things there. Number one, you can learn lessons and without making mistakes,
Huge,
which is
huge. Yeah, huge, man.
so
It saves you
huge.
so much time, so much money.
Oh man, I don't even want to know the amount of money I've saved from learning lessons through other people in this space. So networking with individuals in that regard, making sure you listen to what they're saying, make sure you're picking up on different mistakes they've made so that you don't have to make the same ones yourself. Those are two very big things. Also, just like sharing leads, sharing sales, sharing the very specific information. I mean, that's the close-knit groups are where that's going to happen. It's not going to happen on the 30 people on a Discord call. Nobody's going to be sharing, super good deals, leads, coupons, sites, that sort of thing. But once you find those individuals you can relate with, connect with on a semi-daily basis, it doesn't have to be every day, but probably should be every other day, if not every, once or twice a week. But I try and hop on with my guys at least once or twice a week. I've been bad about it recently just because I've been so busy, and it's weird. I've gotten to a point in business where I feel like I'm always able to spend money when it comes in without having to like source much. It's just kind of like, oh, I know where to put this when it comes back in.
It's a
And
good
so
feeling. It's a good feeling.
there will be a good point for a lot of people in their business. You know, a lot of you guys who are listening to this right now, you might be sourcing 8 hours a day, thinking you're not finding any good stuff. Which I was sitting in that seat probably 5 months ago before Q4. You know, I was spending 8, 10, 12 hours a day sourcing before I was spending 8, 10, 12 hours a day prepping and getting sales. So a lot of that.
Tweet. That's a good banger.
Yeah, you've had a
Yeah.
couple good ones there. That point about the learning through other people, that's a one-liner too. I know you have a really, really good system with the weekly videos, but toss in some one-liners too. Doesn't hurt.
Yeah,
You know?
no, for sure. I've been meaning to get more active on the Twitter and
All
social
right, daily
media.
video time. Have I
Yeah,
ever,
yeah.
Elijah, have I ever lied to you? Have I ever lied to you? Yes,
No,
yes, yes.
I think I might have to, that, and I just started an Insta, so
Oh,
maybe I
cool.
got to do a daily
Well, then
story
that's
type
perfect.
deal.
Yeah, right. Because you record it once, use it both places, right? Because the people are on both places, right? There's people
Yep,
who prefer, so we gotta. It's only reasonable to give the people what they need because that's the key. Is the leverage is going to come to someone, right? So it might as well come to us.
100%. Yep, exactly.
So give us a breakdown of your current operations, your current business. Oh, that's always a good sign
I
too.
knew,
So
I knew you were going to comment on that. I
Celsius
knew you were
in
going to comment
hand.
on that.
See, we're just unpeeling all the peeling away all the reasons why this dude's killing it.
Oh,
Give us a
reach big
breakdown
pay.
in terms of like the business right now, employees, packers, how much time you're sourcing, buying, all that good stuff.
Yeah, good question. So right now I am a two-man show. It's myself and my right-hand man. I hired my buddy right about the same time I went full-time and got the warehouse. I knew I needed help prepping and packing, and I had a point where I kind of sat back and weighed my options as far as prep center or in-house prep. And especially since I got into this business through prep, I'm like, man, I got to at least try this, having my own warehouse, prepping my own product before I, pull the trigger and do a prep center. And so far, I've been absolutely loving it. My friend was in a really weird situation where he was in like a workman's comp situation with his old job. And so he wasn't working and was just getting healed up from the injury. And him and I found each other at like a perfect point. So it's been a blessing to have him around. So it's him and I as far as staff on hand. No VAs right now. Probably Q3, end of Q3, I'm gonna have my first VA. I had 3 or 4 VAs in my real estate business, so I know they're very valuable. I know they're plenty worth what you pay them. And I know they do very, very good work if you train them well. So I would like to get a VA implemented in my business. My goal is end of Q2, I'm going to start looking for one. By the start of kind of Q4, that's when I want to have my VA in place. But yeah, two-man show right now. Yeah, nobody else behind the scenes. Buying, I do all the buying myself, and I probably spend maybe 5 hours a week buying. It's really not, like I said before, I've gotten to a point where I have like products I like to consistently restock. They sell well. There's proof in the pudding. I've beaten authenticities on them. I've beaten brand reviews on them. So I'm very comfortable spending large amounts of money on stuff that's proven. Whereas, newer things, I'm still doing test orders. I think test orders are very healthy no matter where you're at in your business. If you have a new product, you should never be, you know, spending a whole shit ton of money on something you're freshly selling. So we spend about 5 hours a week spending. Sourcing, very minimal. If I don't have something to spend money on and I have a good amount of money, I might source for a handful of hours to find a deal. But that's about it. I mean, the buying and sourcing have really lightened down, and a lot of my time right now is being spent just doing behind the scenes work. And that's why VA is going to be really beneficial for me in the future. Right now, I'm spending a ton of time updating my buy sheet, logging cost of goods and expenses in seller board, putting things or categorizing things in QuickBooks.
Yeah, you get that VA set up sooner, man. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
find a culture fit, a college kid, starting 20 hours a week, whatever that it ends up being, 200 hours, something like that, whatever, or $200 a month. Get that, like, bro, get the Chat GPT job posting up, get it up today. You'll wake up to a bunch of applicants, You should be doing
Yeah.
that shit,
I know. It's not in, I know I shouldn't be doing it. It's more I want to create like very standardized processes
Yeah,
around
no, that
everything.
completely makes sense. Yeah,
And
that's
and
might even be
that's
better long term. Yeah.
that's where like right now, if I were to hire someone, there'd be a lot of wasted time and basically just wasted time of me getting my shit together for them to, take and run with. I've very loosely ran my business up until like 2-3 months
No,
ago
that's how you get
because
rich quick, though. That's how you get rich quick, though. You keep it moving. You keep it
yeah,
moving
exactly. So been
on
keeping it
Amazon, at least.
moving, but yeah, eventually we'll have a VA in the
Like,
picture.
dude, the systems guys just get demolished by the FBM guys. Like, if you're right. If we're saying who's gonna hit 100K a month, is it the dude who's excited to build systems, or the dude who's excited to get his hands dirty in FBM? Not even a question, right?
Not even a question.
So you being right, exactly, right. So in your case, you're someone who grew very fast, who figured it out very fast. Something that all three of us who figured it out quick understand, that I think a lot of people that haven't yet, is like the concept of like core ASINs and the 80-20 rule of like suppliers and hammering certain ASINs. So without getting too much into detail, at least in terms of specifics, can you break down what that actually looks like? Because you probably sell way less products than people think you would. And that's because you've gotten good at finding certain ones that you hammer. I'm going to assume, based on how fast you grew, that's kind of the only way I've seen it to grow really quick.
Yeah, no, and you hit the nail right on the head there. About probably 80% of my business comes from 20% of what I've tested and what I've bought. Um, the big thing there for newer sellers to learn quick, because I wish I would have learned it quicker. I didn't double down on the things that really were working until until I introduced more capital into my business. Then I kind of just doubled down on everything I knew I made a bunch of money on already, because there was proof in the pudding. Now, basically, yeah, I wish I would have done it sooner. I wish I would have doubled down on the 20% that were performing, 80+% of my revenue and profits. You'll know exactly which ASINs those are. And it's very easy to get distracted by the shiny object. So there's always leads, like good leads out there, and you may have already sold a bunch of a good lead, made 70% on your money, whatever. But then you might see there's an 80% like new product out there that I could, put all this money into instead. And that's where I've made some mistakes in the past, where there might be a better deal on the table than something else that I've tried, and proven to be successful in the past. And then I've made the bad decision in putting money into the new shiny object, that, I was just testing out. It didn't perform like I wanted it to, where, there's something to be said where when something's proven and you've made money and you can go back and do it over and over and over again, you should almost always be going back and re-up in your inventory, whether that be FBM or FBA, and or both. That's another thing I wish I would do more of, is both FBA and FBM. Right now we're like 95% FBA. We still FBM some stuff, but here actually right now I've been working on doubling up some of my high performing FBA listings and listing them FBM as well, because a lot of those products we have revolving in and out of the warehouse on a consistent basis to get in our FBA fulfillment centers. And, why not just list them FBM and maybe sell 25 units right away versus waiting another 2-3 weeks down the line. And the big thing there is cash flow. FBM is so cash flow positive. It's insane. It gives you your money back like 3 weeks quicker. I swear, it's insane. So
that, and like, if you have access to that product, because a lot of our way is relying on sales, relying on different product cycles, product oscillations. Like if you have access to it and the product is still steady, I mean, there's no reason not to.
Pump it. Oh,
100%. 100%.
Sweet. Cool, man. All right. So as we finish up here, what are some stuff you would tell yourself as a beginner if you could go back 8, 9, 10 months? And where can people find you on social media?
Number one, what I would tell myself if I was just beginning is don't look at this Amazon biz as just a side gig. You know, for the first 5 months of my journey, I didn't even look at this thing as like this could be a legitimate, massive business company. You know, you can go so many places from the Amazon stepping stone. And so I wish I would have known that going into Amazon. I kind of found that out after like 3 to 5 months of selling. Like, holy crap, there's a lot of money in this. And you can go to distribution after, you can get on other platforms, you can build a brand. There's so many ways you can take the vehicle of the Amazon and run with it. So that's probably the number one thing I would go back and tell myself, because I would have looked at things from a lot different of a perspective, and I probably would have pushed that gas pedal a little bit sooner and a little bit harder too. So that's probably the number one thing I'd go back and tell myself. And then socials, I'm just FBA_Elijah. I'm on Twitter and Instagram right now. More active on Twitter. I do weekly videos on there. I try and share, you know, positives of my business, negatives, lessons learned, that sort of thing. So feel free to sauce me a follow.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right, sweet. Well, super proud of everything you got going on, man, and excited for everything in the future. And, you know, you're just a great example of, you know, that this stuff works, man. Keep it up. Okay.
Hey, thanks, boys. Hey, and thanks for having me on. This is a great podcast.
Yep. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you guys in the next one.